Never be your smiles denied us.
All through the day,
Guard
us
and
waking,
guard us sleeping, and when we die, may we in your mighty keeping all peaceful lie. When the trumpet's call shall wake us, then, O Lord, you not forsake us, but to reign in glory take us with you on high. Holy Father, throned in heaven, all holy Son, Holy Spirit freely given, blessed three and one, grant us grace we now implore you, till we lay our crowns before you, and in worthier strains adore you, while ages run. The next song will be 342. Is this a day of new beginnings? Is this a day of new beginnings, time to remember and move on, time to believe what love is bringing, laying to rest the pain that's gone. How can the seasons of a planet mindlessly spinning round its sun, with just a human name and number, say that some new thing has begun? Yet through the life and death of Jesus, love's mighty Spirit now as then can make us force a world of difference, as faith and hope are born again. Then let us with the Spirit's daring step from the past and leave behind his disappointment, guilt, and grieving, seeking new paths and sure to find. Christ is alive and goes before us to show and share what love can do. This is a day of new beginnings, our God is making all things new. Will you please stand for our opening song, number 103, O God, our help in ages past. O God, our help in ages past, our hope for years to come, our shelter from the stormy blast, and our eternal home. Under the shadow of thy throne, still may we dwell secure. Sufficient is thine arm alone, and our defense is sure. Before the hills in order stood, o'er earth received her frame. From everlasting thou art God, to endless years the same. 1,000 ages in thy sight are like an evening gone, short as the watch that ends the night before the rising sun. O God, our help in ages past, our hope for years to come. Be thou our guide while life shall last, and our eternal home.
I was asked to mention to the college students that are with us that if you would like your presence recorded here, there is a sign-up sheet out in the lobby for you. I'll be reading tonight portions from Psalm 90. The superscription of this psalm reads, "A prayer of Moses, the man of God." Lord, you have been our dwelling place throughout all generations. Before the mountains were born, or you brought forth the earth and the world, from everlasting to everlasting, you are God. You turn men back to dust, saying, "Return to dust, O sons of men." For 1,000 years in your sight are like a day that has just gone by, or like a watch in the night. You sweep men away in the sleep of death. They are like the new grass of the morning, though in the morning it springs up new, by evening it is dry and withered. We are consumed by your anger and terrified by your indignation. You have set our iniquities before you, our secret sins in the light of your presence. All our days pass away under your wrath. We finish our years with a moan. The length of our days is 70 years, or 80 if we have the strength. Yet their span is but trouble and sorrow, for they quickly pass, and we fly away. Who knows the power of your anger? For your wrath is as great as the fear that is due you. Teach us to number our days aright, that we may gain a heart of wisdom. May the favor of the Lord our God rest upon us. Establish the work of our hands for us. Yes, establish the work of our hands.
Tonight is my first opportunity to be with you here at Midweek Meditations in the new year. Last Tuesday night, I was far away from here. I had been invited north to Alaska to speak to a group of ministers there. I traveled on Monday, arriving at night. And the next morning when I woke up, it was 17 below zero. And the sun didn't come up until 10, and then it went down before 4 o'clock. And I thought to myself, Alaska might be a good place in the summer, but I'll leave it to others in the winter. But on my journey, I did think of you here, and I was glad when I returned to hear that Dr. Bigger had spoken some things pertinent and helpful. This evening, I am in a sort of reflective mode. Invite you to be in one too. I suspect that quite a few of you gathered here this evening recall perhaps quite vividly the heady days of the Apollo manned space program, that ambitious undertaking of our nation, inaugurated by the words of John F. Kennedy that we should send men to the moon and return them safely to Earth again. Before I even emigrated to this country as a young man, I remember doing a science project. And somehow in the country of Zimbabwe, I came across a book on the Apollo space program, and I learned about the Saturn V rocket and the command module and the lunar module and the whole procedure, and how our technicians and scientists and machinists and engineers pulled that whole program together so as to eventually accomplish, I think it was 7 successful lunar landings. Doing so with a loss of only 3 men is truly remarkable. And as I observed that program, one part of it particularly intrigued me. It was the little business of making mid-course corrections. You see, as the spaceship rocketed its way from the gravity of Earth out into space, headed for the moon, the engineers and scientists would watch very diligently and carefully, doing their calculations, charting the trajectory of the spaceship. You see, the goal was for that spaceship to enter the moon's gravitational field at just the right altitude, at the right location, at the right speed, in order that it might be pulled into an orbit around the moon at a proper altitude. And everybody knew that failure to achieve that would result either in a crash on the moon or a bounce, if you will, out into outer space, depending on the angle and the location of the mistake. And so mid-course corrections were understood by the engineers and by the astronauts to be things of great consequence. And those mid-course corrections would be done by the astronauts at the instruction of the flight managers, firing little rocket engines that were attached to the side of the craft at precise moments for very precise lengths of time, sometimes as little as 1 second. Proper correction meant success. Failure spelled disaster. I have long thought that those space journeys and their mid-course corrections offer a metaphor for living. You see, our lives each have a trajectory of their own, not from Earth to the moon, but from birth through adolescence to old age and death. Not from Earth to the moon, but from this earth to an earth made new. And this journey, once undertaken, requires, if it is to be successful, a certain diligence on our part, a certain persistence, a periodic monitoring of our trajectories. Are we on course between the point of origin and the preferred destination? You see, a successful journey requires at times the making of prudent mid-course corrections lest we get off course and be in danger of being lost, missing out in the here and now, to say nothing of missing eternity. Though we now are making rapid progress into the new year, I trust you will indulge me right now a few moments, a few thoughts left over from the recent holidays. I don't know how you go through the holidays. I don't know what kind of ethos pervades that time in your life. But I often find the time of holidays to be what I call fuzzy time, a sort of nebulous twilight zone, where the old has not yet ended and the new has not yet come, and everything seems to be waiting for something to happen. I recall asking my secretary to call some other office during the holidays, only to find out that it was closed. And I called a business establishment during that season, only to find out that they couldn't help me because people were on vacation. And I talked with my son, only to find that the office where he works had what I call diddly type of work going on because all the bosses were away. That's what I mean by fuzzy time. Everybody is waiting for one thing to end and for another to begin, and there we sit, marking, as it were, the passage of time. The holidays recently past formed once again a transition time between the old year and the new year. And transition times, if we stop and pay attention to them, often have a different kind of temporal quality about them. You see, during regular times, the routine of life seems to go like this. Get up in the morning, go to work on Monday, work hard all day, come home and eat, do whatever, and then go to bed. And then get up the next morning and go to work and work hard all day and come home and eat and then do whatever and go to bed. And do that again, and before you know it, it's Friday. And then before you know it again, it's Monday, and off you go again. Get up, go to work, work hard all day, come home, eat some food, do whatever, go to bed. This kind of press in the flow of life makes month after month pass by almost unnoticed, one month tucked in tightly behind the other. We lose a sense of passage through time. Thankfully, every now and then, there comes into our life some kind of transition like a holiday. And we have quite a few transitions in our lives. Actually, there are birthdays and baptisms and holidays and graduations and weddings. And dare I say it, there are also elections. There's the coming of the new year, the departing of the old year. There's the Sabbath. There are funerals. Even vacations can serve as transitions. Things that interrupt the otherwise mindless flow of our lives. And for many years I've had a quiet fascination with transitions. You see, transitions bring with them a different sense of time. We are much more aware at transition points of the times passing. And transitions break into the routine of living, serving to punctuate the flow of life, marking time like some temporal comma or semicolon. They cause us to look up from watching down at our feet, that we might have a chance to catch a view of the horizon. They press on us the reality of our temporal natures and a sense of the vulnerability that comes with living on this planet. I think that in times of transition we are more easily reflective. We stop long enough to think. We are pressed to do so by our sense that life is moving along. Transition points may be seen, I think, as waymarks along the road of life, mileposts by which we measure and control life, events that occasion reflection and easily produce assessment. And assessment, friends, may translate into adjustments or mid-course corrections. Some of the transitions that we experience are little ones. We hardly notice them, like the beginning or the ending of a vacation or the passing of a birthday. That's if you're in the middle to upper middle age. If you're young, it's a big deal, and if you get old, it's a big deal. But in the middle, holiday birthdays seem to be unnoticed. Sometimes the transitions we experience are grander, like the passing from boyhood to manhood. And I have often wished many times that in our culture we had some rites of passage like other cultures do, where you know that before that you were a boy and after that event you were a man. Or like the taking of a husband or a wife, that's a pretty grand transition. Some transitions that we experience are grander still, like observing an empire passing away or a new one rising up. And with some transitions, if we're paying attention, we even catch a sense of the great beyond of eternity. If you've ever witnessed the birth of a child, if you had your wits about you, you sensed that there is something grander here than what you observed. If you have ever attended a death, you understand that there's something beyond. Even at a baptism, I have noticed that it's not difficult to catch a sense of eternity. Now, if you have been paying close attention to what I'm talking about tonight, you can now see the intent of my sermon emerging. That if we allow ourselves to see a happy connection between the need for making mid-course corrections and the ethos that is so often attached to transition times, I believe that you and I can unleash into our lives a wonderful dynamic for living well. You see, transition times can be reflective times. Reflection times lead to assessment, and assessment can lead to adjustment. And that is so often what we need, lest we live mindlessly and purposelessly. In this regard, I am intrigued by the observations of the writer of the 90th Psalm. It seems to me that behind his words is the very ethos which I am trying to describe to you tonight. He said, the days of our lives are 70 years or perhaps 80 if we are strong. But even then, their span is only toil and trouble. They are soon gone, and we fly away. Clearly here, this psalmist is thinking of the trajectory of life. He is sensing that it is not very long, neither is it trouble-free, and how we can testify to that. And it is precisely that kind of reflection that produces the kind of thought, the kind of place where insight and wisdom grow. And I would argue that that insight and wisdom is the engine of action. It shows up a few verses later. After his moments of reflection, the psalmist writes, "So, teach us to number our days, that we may apply our hearts to wisdom." You see, transitions, and I don't know what kind of transition the writer was going through in the 90th Psalm, but it seems to me that transitions, like I imagine him to have been experiencing, they still produce in our lives the same